Hinduism is an ancient religion. It started as a fusion of various Indian cultures and traditions. It is believed to be the heritage of Pravedic religion dated back to 30,000 BC, with the classical Hinduism first emerging in 200 BC. The concept of God in Hinduism is complex. It depends on each individual's philosophy and the tradition itself. This reflects to its rituals as well. For example, Hindus in India practice different rituals compared to Hindus in Bali, Indonesia. In general, they worship the Supreme Being as Vishnu, Brahma, Shiva, and/or Shakti. They embody from proper aims of human life: Dharma, duties; Artha, prosperity; Karma, emotion; and Moksha, liberation. Number 2. Islam, 1.5 billion adherents. In 610 CE, Muhammad had revelation from God through Archangel Gabriel. These revelations were recorded into a book known as Quran. The concept of God in Islam is strict and clear. God is one and He is almighty. He created the universe by a simple command: be, and so it is. They believe that there is only one religion, Islam, and Muhammad is its prophet. Number 1. Christianity, 2.1 billion adherents. Christians believe that in 4 BC, the Son of God was born. He is Jesus Christ, who brought salvation from humanity. The story of his life was written in a Bible, which becomes the guidance of Christians' life. Christianity teaches the essential belief of Trinity. God is one God in 3 persons coexisting as one. They cannot be divided.
Statue of a lady sitting upon the waters. One of the most famous of America's national symbols, what is called the Statue of Liberty, standing in New York Harbor, significantly on a star-shaped base with 11 points on the star, symbolic of the 10 kings that will give their power and authority to the 11th king in Revelation 17 verse 12, and also symbolic of Zechariah chapter 5 verse 11, which says that Babylonian woman called wickedness would be removed to another land and set upon her own base. This colossal statue is actually another image of the goddess Ishtar, Ashtoreth, the Libertas, with her 7-horned crown, a symbol of the 7 seas upon which she sits as queen, a clear depiction of the goddess of that great whore that sitteth upon many waters, of Revelation 17.
Was Nimrod. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord, wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel. which means confusion. The name Nimrod means rebellion. Nimrod was a rebel against God, and as the leader of the kingdom of Babel, Nimrod was also connected with the building of the Tower of Babel. And they said, "Go to, let us build us a city and a tower, whose top may reach unto heaven." According to the historian Josephus, Nimrod said he would be revenged on God if he should have a mind to drown the world again, for that he would build a tower too high for the waters to reach, and that he would avenge himself on God for destroying their forefathers. The motive for building the Tower of Babel, according to Josephus, was to protect humanity against another flood. Before the flood, God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. When God saw that the children of men were building a tower in rebellion against him, he wanted to put an end to it and said, "Go to, let us go down and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech." So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth. Tradition says that Nimrod's wife was also his mother and granddaughter of Noah. According to various legends, Semiramis became pregnant after engaging in an adulterous affair while married to Nimrod. Around this time, Nimrod dies a violent and untimely death. In an effort to retain power and to hide her misdeeds, Semiramis makes the most audacious claim. She publicly declares that upon Nimrod's death, he had been resurrected as the god of the sun. As the sun god, Nimrod used his sun rays to miraculously inseminate Semiramis with a child. This child was thus considered to be divinely conceived. The child's name was Tammuz, which she claimed was the reincarnation of Nimrod. Thus, Semiramis was both Nimrod's wife and mother. After the scattering that occurs at the Tower of Babel, the story of the miraculous conception of this child disseminated throughout the world and led to the rise of sun worship, along with the various birth, death, and rebirth cults that are littered through history. These mystery religions of future generations adopted different names for Nimrod, Semiramis, and their child Tammuz. This was the birth of paganism.
Tammuz. Several mysticists allege that Jesus never existed, and many of the elements of his life were borrowed from an earlier deity named Tammuz. The argument is, Tammuz was born in Bethlehem, just like Jesus. He was called a shepherd and tended flocks of dead souls in the afterlife. He wore a crown of thorns made of myrrh. He was annually sacrificed, similar to how Jesus was sacrificed for all mankind. He died and was later resurrected. He was called the Anointed One, Only Begotten Son, Savior of the world, and a healer. So these are the claims about Tammuz.
is that its symbol is a cross because Jesus was crucified on it. But Jesus also turned water into wine and healed hundreds of sick people. Why not a symbol of a grapevine or a sick person? Also, it should be noted that Jesus was most likely crucified on a straight or T-shaped beam. A lot of information can be found in studying words. See, the English word cross comes from the Latin word crux to denote the torture device used for capital punishment during the Roman era. Criminals were put in various inhumane ways on these wooden objects, which were most commonly shaped as a pole or a T, and they were to suffer an excruciating slow death. It's actually where the word excruciating comes from. Remember that the New Testament, which recounts the life and death of Jesus, was originally written in Koine Greek, an ancient Greek dialect, and later translated to Latin. So crux was actually translated from stavros, which has the same connotation. In the original Greek New Testament, stavros was often written in an abbreviated form, like this. The Greek letter tav and letter rho were superimposed to form a single character. This monogram, called the tafro or stavrogram, would later become one of the Christian symbols. But until then, it was just a way of abbreviating the device on which Jesus died on. In the first 4 centuries of its prominence, Christianity faced a lot of persecution by the Roman Empire. So Christians had secret symbols in order to recognize each other. There was the ichthys fish, the alpha and omega letters, the dove, and the anchor. There were more, but the cross was not one of them. Until came Constantine I, the first Roman emperor to have converted to Christianity. Before converting, Constantine was a pagan like the majority of the Roman people and their ancestors, worshipping different gods, including the all-seeing and almighty sun god, who's symbolized by a cross. Now you see where I'm getting at. Let's keep going. Rome was going through a civil war in the early 300s, and Constantine, then just a ruler of the Western Rome, was about to become the sole Roman emperor. It was said that on his way to battle against the Roman emperor Maxentius, Constantine and his Gallic troop saw something miraculous in the sky, a huge cross. The following night, Constantine dreamt of Jesus Christ telling him to make what he had seen in the sky the symbol of God, and to conquer by it. Affected by this dream, Constantine ordered for all arms and flags to be marked by a certain sign, the He cross, the first letter of Christ, or Christos. Other accounts say that the mark was a hero, a superimposed monogram of the first 2 letters of Christ, He and Rho. Early biblical authors had a thing with making sacred words into codes by using the first 2 letters and putting a line on top. The New Testament is full of these nomina sacra. In 312, Constantine and his soldiers eventually overthrew Maxentius and his men. And to them, this was done with the divine intervention of God, the Christian God, marked by the cross. From here on, these divine symbols eventually became those of the Roman military, and thus the Roman empires. Before Constantine died, not only did he get baptized, but he also made Christianity the official religion of the Roman Empire. Therefore, the He and the Hero also became the symbols of Christianity, along with other monograms based on the initials of Jesus Christ. And gradually, they transitioned into the bare cross.
In AD 306, Constantine became the new Roman emperor by fighting a series of civil wars, and he believed that it was the Christian God that helped him conquer. As history explains, Constantine received a vision from God, and that an angel had told him that in the sign of the cross he must conquer. Now, we don't know if his conversion was genuine, but Constantine became a supposed believer of the Christian God. During Constantine's reign, Christians went from being a persecuted sect to openly holding positions of influence in the courts and palaces of kings and governors. So if you wanted to advance in the army or imperial civil service, holding a position of power, becoming a Christian will take you on the right path to do so because all the people at the top are now Christians. Constantine had made Christianity the religion of the state. And so by that time, Christianity had begun intermingling with the state of Rome. And so as people in the Roman Empire converted to Christianity, they brought along with them their former pagan beliefs and practices, and Christianity became intermingled with Roman paganism. There were even pagan statues renamed after biblical characters. The statue of Jupiter was renamed Peter. The statue of Hermes is shown as Christ the Good Shepherd. The statue of the Madonna and Child was retitled the Virgin Mary and Baby Jesus. Christianity had even adopted the pagan worship of the sun on the day of the sun, or Sunday, instead of the Bible Sabbath. Christianity began to fornicate with Roman paganism.
And I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was a name written: Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. And the angel said unto me, Wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carrieth her, which hath the 7 heads and 10 horns. The beast that thou sawest was, and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit, and go into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was, and is not, and yet is. And here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. And there are 7 kings. 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. These have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. These shall make war with the Lamb.
This guy, Khufu, and he didn't like the Egyptian gods, he just had one god and we don't know who that was. And this is the temple of Isis at Giza. Isis, the goddess Isis, was worshipped at Giza, and it seems that Isis was the newer name for the Triple Trinity, the female aspect of the Triple Trinity. There was a male aspect and a female aspect. And in Rome, do you know Rome has 13 obelisks, and more than half of those are from Heliopolis. And I'm arguing Rome shifted, the priests shifted from Heliopolis to Rome. The cult shifted away from Egypt and basically conquered Rome. And we all know that Jesus had lots of women around him. You know, we know these things. And there were two Egypts. This is what complicates the history of Egypt. For much of their history, they were two different countries. This was the south, Upper Egypt. This was the north, Lower Egypt. And I'm going to compare what's going on. This cardinal, I believe he's from Chicago, appears to be wearing the crown of Lower Egypt. And it just goes on and on. This is a historic pope, and he appears to be wearing something like the crown of Upper Egypt. Again, this crown here appears to be a composite of the two crowns, an archbishop. Again, this is a composite. It's sort of red on the inside like this one, and it's sort of folded like that one, but it's also got the point and peak of the Upper Egypt crown. And of course, these are not modern crowns. These are modern people, but these are not modern crowns. It's the tradition that's carried on down the centuries. And Osiris was the green man from the south of Egypt, and he's wearing the crown of Upper Egypt, the south, the hill country, and so he was basically the dead king resurrecting.
Will stand before a greater judge. They will stand before Almighty God and give an account for their crimes against this world, against their oppression, tyranny. The Black Pope rules the earth. Everything you know in history is a lie. It's all a lie. It's being rewritten. True history is suppressed. It's covered up. Everything in the Bible is being fulfilled today. Revelation 17 and 18 reveals that there's no hope. You must come out of Babylon the Great. You must come out of the beast system. And that means the vast majority of Protestant churches also. They are no longer part of the Reformation. They're in apostasy. They're under the power of the Vatican. That includes Anglicanism, Baptism, Methodism, every ism. The Methodist Church is Romanized, Jesuitized, Illuminized, all under the power of Rome. Most of the Pentecostal churches are. So don't just think I'm talking about the Vatican, you know, controlling governments and controlling all religions. No, it's a worldwide conspiracy. Worldwide. That's right. And the Muslims will be used to destroy and attack Israel, but obviously they will be under the power of Russia, Gog and Magog through the Eurasian Union. That's the truth. The Vatican will use Islam to be its sword of inquisition, bringing about the destruction of Rome, the destruction of Mecca, Medina, and even the Jerusalem mosques and the Dome of the Rock. We're about to enter the Great Tribulation, and we have to lift up our voice and expose this great Jesuit world conspiracy. And the true murderers are our presidents, they are our prime ministers, they are our leaders. Those that we think we elect into office, they are our enemy. They are the true murderers. They are the ones that are bringing destruction across the face of the earth. And the greatest murderer today is Pope Francis.
Malachi Martin was asked, why is the Vatican, why do they have a presence on Mount Graham? And one of the things we haven't had time to talk about is Mount Graham is sacred to the Apache. It is a stargate through which they've, for centuries, have seen creatures that come, that move back and forth.
Now, this is right in Arizona.
This is in Arizona. And in fact, their creation mythos is that a disc came down and a bearded guy in the disc, who was the father of creation, was what established Mount Graham as a holy mountain. heaven. Well, anyway, when Malachi Martin was asked, why is the Vatican on Mount Graham? What are they doing up there? He said that they're using their telescope to watch something. And when he was pressed on the question, he said it's because at the highest levels of the Vatican governance, they know what is approaching the earth, and it will be of the utmost importance in coming years. They're literally watching something with the Lucifer device that is approaching planet Earth now.
And what do you believe they're looking for?
I think that they could be deceived. I think they're watching something and they think it's one thing, and I think it's something else. Lucifer, I think it's Satan. I think Jesus said, I beheld Satan as lightning falling from heaven. He has to do with the power of the air. And of course, you know, when Pope Benedict stepped down not long ago, twice lightning struck the top of the St. Peter's Basilica. And this goes back to their belief system. In Romanism, the belief was that the God would tell you when somebody should step down and when a new king should be elected. It was called augurism, and it's where we take the word inaugural or inauguralism for the placement of a new king.
Attention please. Operation will begin in half an hour.
Who believe that CERN is trying to open a portal or abyss to allow certain entities to come through. Well, who do you think are the entities they want to come through? The ancient Egyptians did emphasize the return of these deities, the reptilian gods, the rebirth of Osiris. Is this why you need an antichrist? So that you can have this spirit entity of Osiris to enter into this physical person?
The Vatican will welcome in this alien from another planet as God? Tell me about that.
Well, Sid, you know, when you look at Bible prophecy and it talks about a one world government and a one world religion, you know, you see how divided the world still is. And, you know, we have to think that something unprecedented is going to occur that would unite the world under one heading like that. Now, Ronald Reagan gave a speech to the United Nations where he said how quickly our differences would be resolved if we were faced with an alien threat from outside this world. I mean, this is in the 80s. He gave this speech in the UN. Now, if you look around the world, what people believe, I mean, statistics in the United States say around 50% of Americans already think that UFOs are aliens visiting the Earth. Now, there was a recent poll in the United Kingdom. More people believe in extraterrestrials in the UK than God. Okay? And that's a fact. And so to me, the strong delusion is already here. The groundwork has been laid. And our hypothesis is these powers and principalities that Paul writes about in Ephesians 6, these demonic forces have seeded this idea into the world, so we are primed and ready for a deception.
Okay, but what makes you think the Vatican has planned to announce this?
Well, you know, they're having astrobiology conferences. They've made it intellectually virtuous to believe in these extraterrestrials. Their writings coming out of their theologians have pretty much made the argument that if you don't believe in extraterrestrials, then that is actually the heresy.
You talk about that the Vatican is going to reevaluate their position on basic Christianity. What do you mean by that?
Well, their theologians have written that they think that these entities will be evangelizing us, that they think the chances are that they're not fallen and we are, so that we would have to modify our beliefs according to their revelation.
So are they talking about setting up teams to evangelize humans and aliens? Is that what you're really talking about?
Well, if you get on the internet right now, you'll find
and baptize them?
Hundreds of articles from the Vatican astronomers talking about baptizing extraterrestrials.